I cried a lot in my 20s at the office, and it's because I had great mentors who pulled me into their office and reprimanded me, saying, "Don't ever wear that to the office again. Don't ever say that in a board meeting again." And I cried and I cried. Then it was later in my career that I realized I thought, acted, and dressed differently because I just happened to be one of the first millennials in the office. Now, generations are not necessarily about the year you're born. They group it that way for research because that's the easiest way. But honestly, it's the concept of where were you when? Most people born within the same decade or same time frame went through some big experiences in life which shaped their perspective. So before I get started on bridging the generational gaps, let's first take a look at who are the generations that are currently in the office. We still have some of our traditionalists who are in their 70s and 80s, and of course the big event that shaped their perspective was the Great Depression. This group saves everything, and they were very grateful for what they had, very loyal to their companies, staying for 30, sometimes 40 plus years. The next group, our largest cohort, was the baby boomers, of course. They were 80 million strong, and because there were so many of them, they were extremely competitive. Many of them working harder and harder because they realized they could have more if they worked harder. Some became workaholics, and some went the entrepreneurial route and actually created their own careers. Then came Gen X. This was the group that had the majority of working mothers and dual income. So this is the group that gave us all of the luxuries we have related to work-life balance now. And our most green group is the millennials. You may also have heard of them as Generation Y. This group has grown up with a rapid change in technology, and we are change agents to our core. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today. Let's go back in time. Think about the way that you listened to music as a child. If you're a baby boomer, you probably had albums when you were pretty young, and you had those albums from childhood into high school, into college, into your early adulthood, and if you're like my father, you still have all your Beatles albums. Now, by the time the millennials were born, cassettes had taken hold in the late 70s, early 80s. So we started with cassettes, but by the time we were 10 years old, CDs had come out, and quickly behind that, MP3 players were on our Christmas list by the time we went to college. Early adulthood, we already were getting smartphones and starting to stream digital music where we could get any song, anytime, anywhere. So this rapid shift in technology is where the millennials get that idea of out with the old, in with the new. All of my cassettes and CDs are long gone. They went to the yard sale. In fact, we were forced to change because if you remember the boom boxes that were big in the 80s, they got smaller and smaller. In the 90s, they didn't even have cassette players in them anymore. It was just the CD on top. So we were forced to change, otherwise we were left in the dust. And we have realized this is the same with not only technology, but with the shelf life of the knowledge that we have been given over time. So if you are extremely annoyed by some of the young people in your office who are driving change, saying there's a better, faster, cheaper way to do that, or my personal favorite, there's an app for that, it's because we were forced to do this from a very young age, and we learned the skill of change management even as children. So how else do generational issues show up in the office, beyond just the technology gap, which we've talked about? The next is, I mentioned earlier that Gen X was the one who pushed for work-life balance, and the reality today is that we have work-life integration. We all have it on one platform. This is our personal, our professional, it's our tweets and our texts. So when people tell me, wow, I get so frustrated because my young people are tweeting and texting and on Facebook at 10 a.m., my question is then, are they checking work email at 10 p.m.? The next is loyalty. We don't know what it is. I'm a statistic, guys. My parents got divorced when I was 12. My mom was laid off 3 times, and she always got stellar performance evaluations. It was corporate that called, saying employee 58329's got to go, or the entire department's been eliminated. Heck, my sister's been downsized twice, and she's only a few years older than me. Again, stellar performance evaluations. So having to be a child consoling a parent who comes home who has lost their job, why should I believe that any company would have my best interest at heart as an employer? And I'm not advocating that they should. I have my MBA and I believe in the bottom line. But that is why we have that different definition of loyalty and commitment to organizations. The next is the most commonly used word when stereotyping millennials. Any ideas? Entitlement. As a small child, my voice was heard. At dinner, I was asked, not only do I want dinner, what do I want for dinner, but also, if you don't like that, I'll make you a grilled cheese. And then when vacation time came up, Cara, where do you want to go for vacation this year? Where would you like to visit? My sister and I got to pick several places throughout the years. So we have always believed that our voice counts, even from when we were small children. So when I hit the work world at 21, 22, 23 years old, and all of a sudden nobody cared what my opinion was, or that my voice mattered, that hurt. Also, another phenomenon about entitlement that most people don't make the connection. In the 1980s, personal credit cards became mainstream. As long as your family could get a credit card, you got anything you asked for Christmas. And because our parents were the baby boomers who were very competitive, oh heck no, that family's not getting their kid a new Super Nintendo and my kid's not getting a new Super Nintendo. They were very competitive and didn't want anybody to think that they were richer than we were. They didn't want their kids to get picked on, bullied. So we got the new Guess jeans, the new Liz Claiborne perfume, anything that was popular at the time, because our parents had access to credit and could pay it off in July. So who cares, right? What matters about generational differences and what matters about the millennials in particular? They're no different than any other green generation that came in that we had to whip into shape, right? We told those Gen X men, cut your long hair and quit wearing ripped up jeans. We told them what professionalism is. We showed them how to act and think and dress appropriately at work. So we'll just do the same with the millennials. We have a problem. The math doesn't add up. So the millennials, again, are aged 34 to 14. Only half of us are in the workforce right now, about 40 million of the 80. So we are a force to be reckoned with. By the time we are all in the workforce, we will be double the size of Gen X, pretty much, and half of the baby boomers will have retired, or it will become half within the next 10 to 15 years. We are also the generation that is the most educated walking in the door on day one, as well as we have access to information. So if I'm in a meeting and I hear terms that I don't know, or I don't understand the difference between a balance sheet and an income statement, I can Google it. There's lots of YouTube videos that explain the difference. So what's happening at companies? Turnover. Turnover is going through the roof. 70% of millennials leave companies in less than 2 years. I call it the 18-month itch, is when they start putting out resumes. It's the truth. Start thinking about who you've got in that 18-month window right now. So the statistics show that it costs about $15,000 to $25,000 per millennial that you lose. And we're not just talking training and recruiting costs, which are the things that are probably budgeted for. We're talking also about the learning curve, lost productivity, and the time that your managers are spending filling vacant seats when they should be managing, seeking threats, seeking opportunities for the organization. Other lost opportunities include the institutional knowledge that is walking out the door with your retiring baby boomers, and the fact that a lot of companies do not have an information sharing or knowledge sharing system in place to pass that along, as well as the industry relationships. When you have turnstile employment of some positions that are flipping every year or 2 or 3 years, those people can never get to subject matter expert status, where they are truly a great value to your organization. All of these are impacting bottom lines. So as I see it, you've got 2 options. The first, keep doing what you're doing. Keep managing people the way that you've managed them for the last 10 or 20 years. Keep operating in the same way. And just stop hiring millennials. Done. See ya. No. Okay, so that's option 1. And I'm kind of serious about that. If you aren't willing to drive change, as we're talking about today, just stop hiring millennials, or stop hiring people that have a millennial mindset. Remember, it's not necessarily the year, it's about the mindset. Or the other option, which I would highly recommend, is to hire them. Allow them to drive change, or allow them to help you drive change and learn how to manage them. So we work with a lot of clients in this area, and these are just a few. Of course, we don't have time to dive into these, but these are just a few of the things that we suggest. Communicating expectations, listening more, asking for feedback, utilizing them to their full capacity. If you have millennials in your office who think they're Superman on the inside, but you will only let them be Clark Kent in their cube, you're not going to keep them for very long. Make sure they feel fully utilized. Align for advancement. It's no longer a career ladder. We now have a career jungle gym. So no matter how small your organization is, and you might say, well, we don't have any room for them to grow. I don't believe you. You can give them special projects, have them work on different teams. There's always things that are on the back burner that nobody has time to get to, that a millennial is chomping at the bit to have the opportunity to work on. And finally, recognize their contributions. So I've heard a rumor that boomers only had trophies for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place. Is that right? Is that right? I've got several 9th place trophies at home, lots of them. I'm a singer, not an athlete, but I've got lots and lots of trophies and participation ribbons that would tell you otherwise. That would say how great I was at softball, even though I was scared to death of the ball. Thank you guys very much for your time.